Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast. That is, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot with Kate O'Dell and Kim Strassel. Kim, I just want to ask one political point about the impact of all this on Joe Biden's presidency. You know, if you go back to 1979 and the revolution in Iran has toppled the Shah and put in the revolutionary Islamic government, every American president since has been in some way affected and often damaged by Iran. In the case of Jimmy Carter, of course, I think you can make the case that the Iranian decision to take the hostages at the U.S. Embassy was one of the biggest factors that toppled his presidency and allowed Ronald Reagan to win. And if these attacks continue and you get this extending into the summer and the fall, I think this puts Biden's presidency at risk as well.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And by the way, let's not forget Jimmy Carter's botched rescue attempt, which didn't help at all either. And I bring that up because there's a certain haplessness to Joe Biden's foreign policy as well, too. We haven't really gotten into this, but one of the things he seems to struggle with is his own priorities that he's locked into, even though they're somewhat entirely misguided and remnants from the past. And of course, I'm thinking here of the Iranian nuclear deal that Obama etched out and that there was essentially an unwritten new version of this past July, which has made the administration coddle Iran in all kinds of ways. I mean, we are essentially allowing them to access money, which in theory is for humanitarian aid, but money's fungible, which means that we are enabling them to access money that they are using to fund these proxies. And that seems to take precedence, just like Joe Biden's care about climate issues seems to take precedence over a clear-headed strategy with China and its saber rattling against Taiwan. And I think that if they don't understand the real risk of these attacks now and what is likely to follow if they do not respond with a real show of force, this does become one of his biggest political liabilities.
All right. Well, let's turn to the news that has come out late last week and is unfolding in more detail now, that the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, that employees for that agency have been identified as having been involved in assisting Hamas on October 7th. The Israelis have produced an intelligence dossier that the U.S. found credible enough to at least put a pause on funding of UNRWA. And it includes details like 6 UN relief workers were actually part of the wave of the militants who attacked Israel on October 7th. 2 helped kidnap Israelis. 2 others were tracked to sites where Israeli citizens were shot and killed. Others coordinated logistics for the assault, according to the intelligence dossier. Also, the dossier says that 10% of UNRWA employees have links to terror groups. Kate, what's the impact of this on American support for UNRWA?
Well, I think it's a really damning dossier suggesting that the percentage of employees who are sympathetic to Hamas, who have ties to Hamas, is higher than the general population. So it suggests there's something particular going on in this group. Trump cut off funding for this group. Biden restored it. I think it's quite clear now that we shouldn't be supporting it. I mean, the details of this report is astonishing. For instance, a social worker who appears to have played a role in absconding with the body of a dead Israeli soldier. What kind of social worker is that? I mean, this is really a detailed and damning report suggesting the U.S. should have no involvement with this outfit any further.
Yeah, Kim, it's so troubling because it illustrates that the problem of accepting that the United Nations is a fair arbiter of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Just for background, the United Nations has another relief agency, humanitarian refugee agency, which serves all other refugee situations around the world. UNRWA is specifically for Palestinian refugees. And the rap against it over the years, and I think it really is fair, is that rather than do what most refugee agencies are supposed to do, which is to help people who are refugees get on with their lives, find new opportunities, get out of the camps. UNRWA has essentially helped the status quo, helping with education so that it includes anti-Israel propaganda, and they're hotbeds for continuing the hatred of Israel instead of essentially trying to improve the lot of Palestinians.
Yeah, I mean, you just said the right thing. This is essentially a propaganda refugee agency. And so while this is an outrageous story, sadly, it is not really a surprise. UNRWA's been around since 1949. It works all across the Middle East, working with 5 million Palestinians. As you say, it has been an enormous hurdle, allowing those Palestinians to integrate in new communities. A lot of what they do, as you note, they have close to 150 schools that they operate in Gaza. 7 of the workers who were accused of this were teachers in those schools. And they have been in the hot spot for many, many years, especially too, because they've also become this employment agency for Palestinians. 30,000 people work for UNRWA, 13,000 of them alone in Gaza. And the UN has sort of viewed it as a double booster in that you get a handout aid, but also you get to employ Palestinians. And so there has always been this extraordinary bias and this sort of political revolutionary spirit to this UN aid agency. And again, not a surprise, but well overdue. And I'm really hopeful that this time somebody decides to take a strong stance and that we turn to other aid agencies to start doing this work.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kate. And thank you all for listening. We're here every day on Potomac Watch, and we hope you will join us tomorrow and every day. Thanks for listening.